It's time for the NHL season to begin. Welcome to the NHL Preview Show, where we will take a look at all the teams in the Eastern Conference and then decide who might make the playoffs and then represent the East in the Stanley Cup Finals. If you want to see the Western Conference preview video, then just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you will get the alert when that video drops. Thank you for subscribing. This is the channel that makes sense of sports, sports cards, and life, and I'm your host, Doc Schwartz. For those that don't know me, I'm the son of a card hoarder. I had accumulated 8 million cards by 1991, and I've been able to sell off 7.5 million cards over the last decade. But that's enough about me. Let's get into some hockey. Here's the breakdown for this NHL preview. First, we will look at all the teams in the Atlantic Division and then go through all their rosters. And then we will jump over to the Metropolitan Division and their 8 teams. And when I'm done with the previews, I will get into my predictions for the 2025-26 season. As always, this is a conversation channel, which means your comments and opinions matter. So if you agree or disagree with me on any prediction, please put your comment down below. Now, without further ado, let's get into the Atlantic Division. The first team we're going to look at are the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings finished 10th last season with 86 points and just missed the playoffs by 5 points. But GM Steve Yzerman thinks he has finally got the winning formula this year. The Red Wings added veteran goaltender Josh Gibson to the roster and also forwards James Van Riemsdyk and signed future Hall of Famer Patrick Kane to another one-year deal. Detroit is also led by their superstar forward Lucas Raymond, who had 80 points last season with 27 goals and 53 assists. When we look at the rest of the roster, the question remains, are the Red Wings good enough to get over the hump? The Lightning are going to look a little different this year. Yes, they still have Brayden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, and Andrei Vasilevsky in net, but they added Jake Gensel in the offseason. Could this be the last piece they need to make it back to the Cup Finals? Tampa Bay finished with 102 points last season, which was third overall in the Eastern Conference, and they will definitely be a formidable team again this year. As we look at the depth chart, we can see Tampa Bay has one of the best top lines in the league, and the second line of Hagel, Cirelli, and Galkevs is still not too shabby either. But what made the Lightning so frightening to play in the playoffs from 2019 to 2021 was their relentless forecheck. If Tampa Bay can do the same thing this year, that could frustrate a lot of teams fighting for the last few spots in the Eastern Conference. The Ottawa Senators have been promising their fans they will finally make a run for the Cup for the last several years, but unfortunately have fallen short. But a lot of their younger talent are now veterans, such as Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle. The biggest problem with the Sens has always been their goaltending. But if Linus Ullmark can win 30 games again this year, we could be looking at a much different outcome. What are the keys for the Sens? As we look at their depth chart, their second line of Perron, Cousins, and Zetterlund need to produce more goals. That would put less pressure on Ullmark to be perfect every single game. Ottawa also had the 11th ranked power play last season, so they need to be just a little bit better this year if they want to go deeper into the playoffs. Toronto has not won a Stanley Cup since 1967, and the long drought is starting to make Leafs fans a bit grumpy. Not only that, but the Maple Leafs decided not to sign Mitch Marner, instead trading him to the Golden Knights for Nicholas Roy. For me, the problem with the Leafs is goaltending. As you can see from the depth chart, I like their offense. You got Nyes, Matthews, and Domi on the top line, McCann, Tavares, and Nylander on the second, and then the bottom 6 forwards are Joshua, Roy, and Michelli, Lorentz, Lawton, and Cowan. Honestly, that looked good enough for me for them to make the playoffs again. Toronto finished last season with 108 points, which put them first in the Atlantic Division. I would expect them to finish in the top 3 again this year. The two-time defending Cup champs will be without Matthew Tkachuk and captain Alexander Barkov for the start of the season. Tkachuk had surgery in August and likely won't return to the team until mid-December, while Barkov will probably miss 7 to 9 months because he had surgery on both his ACL and MCL. That means the Panthers need to lean on everyone else on their roster, but as you can see from their depth chart, they are stacked. All of these players have been to the Cup Finals 3 years in a row: Verhaeghe, Bennett, and Reinhart, Luostarinen, and Lundell. And don't forget that the Panthers added Brad Marchand at the trade deadline last year from the Bruins. When you combine all that experience with the top three goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky, Florida just needs to somehow make it into the playoffs, and anything is possible for them. Speaking of Boston, they haven't been back to the Cup Finals since 2019, which seems like a lifetime ago. There's no more Patrice Bergeron, and now there's no more Marchand. That leaves David Pastrnak left to carry the offense, and I think that's the problem here. As you can see from the depth chart, where is the offense going to come from? Geeky and Lindholm are good players, but they aren't as good as Bergeron and Marchand, so I think that's the issue. Arvidsson, Zacha, Blumel, Jennot, Mittelstadt, and Putra round out the top six forwards. In the preseason, Isemont has started to raise some eyebrows with his play, but do the Bruins have enough to make the playoffs? The Canadiens are a very young team. You got Cole Caulfield, Ivan Demidov, and Rookie of the Year Lane Hudson, which means this could be the year the Habs turn the corner. Their top line of Coffey, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky could turn some heads. Don't be surprised if Caulfield and Suzuki both score 40 goals. The question for the Habs is goaltending. Can Sam Montembeault get the job done? He won 31 games last year with a save percentage of .902, but was that overachieving? Or does he have another level of play he can reach? That's the big question in Montreal. Oh, brother, the Buffalo Sabres. It's been a really tough run for the Sabres fans the last few years. On paper, the Sabres don't look that bad. Tage Thompson is one of the big stars in the NHL, and with the acquisition of Josh Norris from the Senators, Buffalo has a really good first line. The question becomes the rest of the forwards. As you can see from the depth chart, is there another name that pops out at you? And in my mind, the answer is no. I just don't see anyone else on this team that can score close to 40 goals, which means all the pressure then falls on goaltender Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who had a so-so year last year. In 55 games, he had a goals against average of 3.2 and a save percentage just under .900. Does Luukkonen have another gear? Who knows? But if Buffalo can't hold their opponents to less than 3 goals, I'm not sure how many games they will be able to win this year. And that wraps up the Atlantic Division. The first team we're going to look at in the Metro are the Washington Capitals. Just in case people have been living under a rock, Alexander Ovechkin finished last season with 44 total goals, giving him 897 for his career, which surpassed Wayne Gretzky's unbelievable record of 890 goals in a career. But Ovechkin is not a young man anymore. He's 40 years old, so the question becomes, how many more goals can we realistically expect from the 20-year NHL veteran? When we look at the depth chart, it looks like the Caps don't have much else to surround Ovechkin, which means the Caps have to play a much more defensive style game, which will put more pressure on their goalie, Logan Thompson. In my opinion, I think the Caps will have to make roster moves before the trade deadline. Columbus is an interesting team. On paper, they look really strong in many areas of the ice. They have some really young, talented players such as Adam Fantilli, Cole Sillinger, and Kirill Marchenko. But that talent doesn't seem to be enough yet. Columbus finished last season with only 89 points, which was 3 points out of a playoff spot. And I really don't know if the Blue Jackets have done enough this offseason to prove where their team will end up. The Carolina Hurricanes have basically been bridesmaids the last several seasons. If you ask any NHL expert, they will tell you they have one of the most suffocating forechecks in the league. But if you can get past the first wave of players, Carolina gives up a lot of odd man rushes. That puts a lot of pressure on goalie Frederik Andersen. But the Canes mean business here, which is why they went out and acquired forward Nikolai Ehlers and defenseman Keandre Miller. As you can see from the depth chart, the Canes have 4 solid lines. So, do the Canes make it all the way this year? Only time will tell. Only 5 more teams left to preview, and the Devils have been up and down the last few years, mainly because of their inconsistent goaltending. Jacob Markstrom is back in net this season for head coach Sheldon Keefe, who is starting his second year with New Jersey. The Devils are led by superstar Jack Hughes, but the rest of the team has been disappointing to say the least. Timo Meier's production hasn't been what the Devils really needed to be. In the 2020-21 season, Meier finished the year with 76 points for San Jose, but Timo has not matched that level since joining the Devils. He had only 53 points last year and 52 points the year before. Can Timo pick up his goal production? Because if he can, then the Devils can realistically become the #1 seed out of this division. The New York Islanders feel like a team on an island. Last year, they were average in just about every single category. They only scored 224 goals, which ranked them 15th in the Eastern Conference, and they gave up 260 goals, which was ranked 11th in the conference. That's just not going to cut it if you want to make the playoffs. The Isles are going to have to rely on Matthew Barzal and Bo Horvat to lead the way, but more than that, when goalie Ilya Sorokin was not in net, the Islanders had a record of 5-11. Those are precious points you can't keep giving away when the Eastern Conference is so congested. Last year is a year to forget for Rangers fans, and because of that collapse, this is a new look Rangers squad for the 25 year. They have a new coach, Mike Sullivan, they have a new captain, JT Miller, and they have some new talent such as rookie Gabe Perreault. That's not the only thing that's new. The Rangers lost a lot of players. Last season, they traded away captain Jacob Trouba, and then in the offseason, they traded Ranger legend Chris Kreider and decided to not sign defenseman Keandre Miller. That means there's a lot riding on the shoulders of the core that's left over. Fox, Zibanejad, Trocheck, and Panarin need to step up if the Rangers make it back to the playoffs. Optimistically, Rangers fans want to believe this team can repeat what the '94 Cup team did, winning the whole thing after having a collapse the year before in '93. But I'm not really sure this team has the grit and determination of the '94 team. The Philadelphia Flyers are ready to take the next step this year. They want to be able to leapfrog over the Islanders and the Rangers to secure their spot in the playoffs. But in order to do that, the Flyers need to play more consistently. As we look at the depth chart, there is one huge bright spot, Matvei Michkov. The rookie phenom had 63 points with 26 goals and 37 assists in his rookie campaign. If he can continue to grow as a player, could we be looking at a 90-point season or even a 100-point season for Michkov? In the offseason, the Flyers went out and added Trevor Zegras from the Anaheim Ducks, reuniting him with former teammate Jamie Drysdale on defense, which leaves just one question mark for Philly. What about the goaltending? Sam Ersson was okay in net, but not great. He had a goals against average of 3.14 and a save percentage of .883. Will that be enough to make the playoffs? Could this be the very last year we see Sid the Kid play in a Pittsburgh jersey? I know this sounds controversial, but what is keeping Crosby in Pittsburgh at this point? Head coach Mike Sullivan is gone, and the Penguins haven't made the playoffs the last few seasons. When we look at the depth chart, I don't know about you, but I don't think this roster strikes fear in the hearts of the Eastern Conference anymore. Crosby makes every player around him better, but Crosby can't make Rust and Raquel into future Hall of Famers. That's the problem. Russ scored 65 points last season, and Raquel added another 70 points. But in order for the Penguins to make the playoffs, both players need to put in 80 points each. Not to mention that Malkin isn't the player he once was. Last year was plagued by more injuries. The superstar forward only played 68 games last season and scored only 16 goals for 50 total points. Before the end of the year, do not be surprised if Crosby is dealt to another team looking to make a cup run, just like Florida did with Brad Marchand last year. Now that we've looked at all 16 teams in the Eastern Conference, it's time to predict which 8 teams will make the playoffs. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to give you the 8 teams I think will make the playoffs, and then I'll give you my predictions for who wins the East and goes back to the Cup Finals. So here are the 8 teams I think will make the playoffs. From the Atlantic Division, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning are shoo-ins for the playoffs. Even though Toronto lost Mitch Marner, I don't think it affects their roster too badly overall. And I think adding Getzel to the Lightning really improves their overall team. So those teams are in. As for the Metro Division, I think the Hurricanes and the Devils are locks for the playoffs, which means there are 4 open slots left to fill. But before I reveal who I think the final 4 teams will be, let me tell you which teams I think have no shot at making the playoffs this year. In the Atlantic Division, sadly, the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins have no chance of making the playoffs this year with these rosters. I'm sorry to those 2 fan bases, but your teams need to bring up some rookie talent or make a trade, but right now your roster isn't that good, which leaves the remaining 6 teams fighting for just 4 playoff spots. So who is left? We have Montreal, Florida, Detroit, Ottawa in the Atlantic, fighting against Columbus, the Rangers, Flyers, and Caps in the Metro. Here's my prediction. I think there will be 2 teams from the Atlantic and 2 teams from the Metro that get in. And the 2 teams from the Atlantic I see making it are Florida and the Ottawa Senators. Despite Florida not having Tkachuk and Barkov, I think the addition of Marchand is enough to make the Panthers competitive throughout the first half of the season. Tkachuk should be back by February, and then the NHL has a break for the Olympics, which I think works out in Florida's favor. But don't be surprised that the Panthers make a huge surge at the end of the year. As for the Sens, they made the playoffs last year for the first time in a long time, and I think they will continue to make strides moving forward, which leaves just 2 teams from the Metro. I know I'm going to be accused of being biased here since I'm predicting the Flyers and the Rangers to get in, but that's only because I think the Islanders made no significant changes to the roster and they weren't that good last season, whereas the Flyers and the Rangers didn't rest on their laurels. The Flyers could surprise a lot of people this year, and I think the Rangers will have enough in the tank to be the 8th seed in the East. This is a goalie-dependent league, and the Rangers have one of the top 3 goaltenders in the East, and there you have it. So let's recap the Eastern Conference playoff picture. The 8 teams I think will get into playoffs are the Hurricanes, the Devils, the Maple Leafs, the Lightning as the top 4 seeds, and then the Senators, Panthers, Flyers, and Rangers rounding out the rest of the 8 teams that make it from the East. The moment of truth. Who do I think will make it to the Cup Finals from the East? That is a tough call. On the one hand, the Florida Panthers will be trying to make history with winning 3 cups in a row and playing in the Cup Finals for the 4th straight year. But I don't want to draw the suspense out any more than I have to. I think the Lightning will be the ones who make it back to the Cup this year, and here's why I think that. Even though I don't think losing Marner was a big deal for Toronto, I do think their goaltending/defense will collapse on them in the playoffs. Therefore, I can't see them making a run for the Cup. Whereas I think Florida will make the playoffs. I just don't think they will have enough in the tank to beat Lightning. Without Tkachuk and Barkov, Florida is going to have to overachieve during the regular season, and with the condensed schedule because of the Olympics, this could backfire on them in the playoffs. As for the Canes, Devils, Flyers, and Rangers, if the Lightning can use a suffocating forecheck along with all their firepower like Getzel, Point, Kucherov, and Hedman, don't forget they still have Andrei Vasilevsky in net. There's just too much for anyone to beat in a 7-game series. And before I say goodbye for today, if you want to watch the NHL West preview, remember to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you get the alert when that video drops. And as always, this is a conversation, so let me know which predictions you agree with and which ones you don't. Put your comments down below. Until next time, this is Doc saying,